Shortly after Prince Adam's curse is lifted, he and Belle are faced with a new issue: the state of the castle. Prior to the curse, Prince Adam's parents had died, and their wealth slowly started to dwindle through the reckless actions of their only son, Adam. The castle staff took care of the young prince, but could not raise him. It got so bad that they were at the point of selling furniture, which is why the servants were transformed into furniture when the enchantress put the curse on Prince Adam. Now with the curse lifted, all that is left is an empty castle with no means of making money, and a group of servants without any means of income. Lumiere tries to keep the staff morale up by insisting the master will find a way to bring the castle back to its glory days. Meanwhile, Cogsworth discusses the money issue with Adam and Belle. They have a few items left that could be sold, but it will not be long before the servants will have to move on and leave the castle. Meanwhile, back in town, the mob who attacked the castle are still recovering from the attack. They are furious that they have been beaten back and that their hero Gaston was defeated. They hold a funeral ceremony for Gaston while singing a melancholy version of the Gaston song from the first movie, with verses said in the past tense like, "No one smiled like Gaston, no one ran like Gaston, no one was as brave a man like Gaston." During the song, the townsfolk will fill up an empty coffin with paraphernalia of Gaston's, like his gun, bow, antlers, boots, eggs. They then carry it outside to the graveyard and lower it into the ground. The song ends with LeFou singing alone as he tosses a dandelion on the coffin before it is covered with dirt. He sings the final line of the song: "There was just one guy in town who had all of it down, and his name was Gaston." The song ends and the surviving townsfolk plan to ask another nearby noble or monarch for help. With financial ruin looming over them, Prince Adam and Belle walk the grounds to think of a way that they can revitalize his parents' kingdom. While walking along the river that flows through the property, they find Gaston washed up on shore. His body is terribly wounded with many broken bones. Belle takes pity on Gaston and asks Adam to take him back to the castle to be treated. Adam is reluctant at first, but does so eventually. Gaston is cared for primarily by Mrs. Potts when he arrives. While the camera focuses in on Gaston, sleeping in obvious pain, she tells Adam and Belle that it does not look good, but she will do her best. Gaston dreams of his childhood during a stormy night. A loud knock at his parents' door is heard, and he opens it only to be faced with the last time he saw the beast with him, holding him by the neck. As he falls off the castle roof, he stirs awake. He tries to get out of bed, but finds he is too weak to do so. He then quickly realizes that his equipment is missing. He stubbornly and with great difficulty roams around the castle looking for his clothes and equipment. So I figure this segment is meant to be comical as he is in a state of undress, and he's broken in so many spots, and he's awkwardly trying to get around the castle using anything he can get his hand on as a crutch or a support to assist his movement. You can just picture like servants moving out of his way, and they're just like watching him, seeing this like messed up guy running around who's half naked. Some laugh, some point his direction. Some help him, be like, yeah, your clothes are over that way to the laundry. Some of the maids like eye him up and down flirtatiously. He eventually runs into Mrs. Potts, who is in the middle of laundering his clothes. Dismayed, he tries to stop her, stating there was something very important in his pocket. Chip then appears and asks, "Was it all these knives?" "No! The other pocket." "These arrows?" "No, it was the other pocket." "This blunderbuss? These shots?" "No." "Bear trap?" "No." "Mouse trap?" "No." "This long roll of coins? This was found in your front pocket." "No!" "Ah, I remember, there was a weed in there too." And Chip hands Gaston a dandelion wrapped in silk. Gaston grabs it immediately and examines the weed. It is clearly aging from golden yellow to gray. Satisfied with the state of the weed, he proceeds to chastise Mrs. Potts for going through his things. She chastises him back, like a child, for not doing his laundry enough and smelling like a pig and carrying more equipment than he needs, etc. Dumbfounded, Gaston demands where he is. He picks up a plunger threateningly when Lumiere tells him to relax. Mrs. Potts arms herself with a washboard and a broom. Prince Adam enters the laundry with Cogsworth behind him and demands what is going on. He rushes over and grabs Gaston's arm just as he's about to strike Mrs. Potts. Gaston turns and looks at Adam. He looks into his blue eyes and is struck with the flashback of the beast. "Beast!" he cries out and tosses Adam from his arm. He grabs one of the knives and lunges at Adam haphazardly. Adam dodges just in time. The two fight, with Gaston gaining the upper hand at first until succumbing to his wounds and collapsing. Adam puts him in a hold and demands that he calm down. Gaston refuses and then passes out from the pain. Belle comes in and is shocked by the scene. Gaston opens his eyes and sees Belle in his blurry vision. The echoey sounds of Prince Adam can be heard as he organizes him, Lumiere, and Cogsworth to get him back to bed. Belle can be heard asking Mrs. Potts if she is okay. She replies, "Oh, of course, dear. I've dealt with worse scamps than the likes of him." I don't remember what she sounds like. I assume she sounds like Maggie Smith in Downton Abbey. I don't know. Chip picks up the dandelion that falls out of Gaston's limp hand. He puts it on Gaston's bedside table once he is returned and bound to the bed. The film then returns to a familiar kingdom set in the middle of a field. Inside the castle, LeFou, going back to names, I was thinking about LeFou, and I was thinking, well, you know what, maybe LeFou is also his last name. So I looked through, and I tried to find a few good names that I thought would work well with the character, and also have some meaning to his name that would be poignant. So I thought, okay, we got Ami, or Ames, friend, Andre, which means manly, or Lowell, which means beloved. So for the sake of this, I'm probably going to be calling him LeFou most of the time, so you know. But I thought Andre sounds the best, Andre LeFou. But tell me what you think. And maybe you know some other French male names that would work well with LeFou. Monsieur Dark and a few other townsfolk are requesting to be seen by the king. The king lets them in, and they enter the grand hall where Sleeping Beauty was set. So Sleeping Beauty, I thought I needed another monarch for this story, and I thought, why not? There's so many kingdoms set in France in the Disney universe, and we know that a lot of these kingdoms exist in the same universe. Like we see Rapunzel show up at, was it Elsa's coming out ceremony or something like that. We see her in Frozen. So I thought, okay, well, why don't we do a little bit of fan service, because this is a sequel to a very old movie. So I thought, why not? So Sleeping Beauty is set 300 years before Beauty and the Beast. I looked into it a little bit. And if you look into Beauty and the Beast has like guns, or they're not present in Sleeping Beauty. And if you look at the time periods when they were written, so this isn't the same court as the original Sleeping Beauty, but the setting is basically the same. I also thought it would be good to include Sleeping Beauty because I thought, well, they also enjoy supernatural elements. I know most Disney films enjoy supernatural elements, but you'll see later on the reason why I decided to include them. The room is packed with members of the court, and LeFou, for a moment, thinks he sees the triplets from the town, but then they disappear as the king greets them, and his attention is directed towards the king. The king is introduced as King Auroran. I thought this was fitting. I thought Auroran was a fitting name, considering that his ancestor would be Princess Aurora, and it would help just link this movie and Sleeping Beauty together. The townfolk explain what happened at the castle. The king asks his consul if he knows the lord or monarch of the castle to which they are referring. console reviews a book that suggests, based on location and description, this is the old Bête castle. So I'm throwing out words because we weren't given names. I'm throwing out names because we weren't given names. And because names are so important again in Beauty and the Beast, as I explained before, I made a decision and just called it Castle Bête. And they're the Bête family, or the Bête monarchy. And of course, Bête means the beast in French. So it's a nice sounding name, just like every other French name, but I figured it works well for the plot. And really, so what if it's like so on the nose? Lumiere, light, candle, Cogsworth. So, Mrs. Potts. It doesn't matter, it's a Disney film. I thought also it might work too because the castle, as we've seen in the original Beauty and the Beast, it's like the surrounding area is quite menacing with like wolves running around right up to the castle gates. Anyways, the console then says, "We have not heard from them for some time. Last reports come from nearly 10 years ago. One of our escorts tried to make contact and found the castle locked and in disarray. The last recorded surviving member is Prince Adam. His parents had died when he was but a child." The king suggests that perhaps bandits have taken over the castle, but Monsieur Dark explains that as a man who is an expert in lunacy, he can testify to the validity of the townsfolk's claims. Remember, he was in charge of the insane asylum in Beauty and the Beast. Furniture attacked the mob, and a great and powerful beast slew their local hero, Gaston. The king gets up from his throne with a troubled look on his face. He walks over to a display case where a dragon's tooth and claw are kept alongside a familiar sword, shield, and oddly enough, a sewing wheel. My family is not... let's make Sean Connery. Because he was so good in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, okay? Sean Connery is Prince Roran. My family is not unfamiliar with the supernatural, magical, and extraordinary. He turns back to the townsfolk. I have not been to your side of the country in a long time. I will go with a contingent of soldiers, and we will see what we can make of these possessed furnishings. A monstrous beast. He turns his head to his game warden, Daguerre. So this is an original character that I created. His name means lost or stray, and you'll see why I gave him that name. Physically, Daguerre is very similar to Gaston. Like big, like think how he's just Gaston, but more Gaston. Like he's bigger, prettier, shittier in attitude. Kind of like how Niles is just an ultra form of Frasier, you know? Daguerre, you know Gaston well, yes? Yes, my lord. Maybe I'll give him Solid Snakes. Yes, my lord. He looks at the saddened townsfolk who are clearly hanging on his every word, since he knew their hero. Daguerre sighs. He was a good man, an excellent hunter, terrible loss. Good then. You shall join us. As my head game warden, your expertise will likely be needed against this beast. The film returns to Adam and Belle, who are on a balcony overlooking the castle garden. Adam is reviewing papers and laments that the old mine below the castle shows signs of still having precious gems and gold. But it has long since been abandoned after a collapse. It would take considerable manpower and money to reopen it. Additionally, the food stores are quickly depleting now that there is just one mouth to feed. Adam is going over his financial woes. Belle spies Mrs. Potts wheeling Gaston in an old wheelchair into the garden. Adam takes notice as well and explains that Gaston's injuries are healing, but slowly. He's almost mobile again. Perhaps we can return him to the village? Belle is unconvinced. She states that they are in the middle of winter. He would not be able to make the trek himself on foot, and we have no carriages or horses to take him, with Father and Philippe out trying to sell his inventions. I figured for Maurice, they're in financial woes. Obviously, Maurice has inventions, tries to sell them, and that's where he is. Belle turns to Adam and sees him frustrated with his head in his hands. What kind of prince am I, when I can't even look after my own court? I don't know what I'm doing. Belle approaches him and holds him close to her. Don't be so hard on yourself. You never had a chance to learn, what with how quickly your parents passed. As Belle and Adam talk, the film moves to Gaston, who is approached by Chip, who is holding his bow and arrows. Chip offers him the bow, saying, now that your arms are better, I thought you might like to practice while you're outside. He directs his attention to the side of the castle. I set up a target for you. Gaston sees the target, then looks up at Belle. He sees her looking at him and is quick to take the bow. Ah, my bow! Give me that, boy. Watch this. He goes to pull back on the string, and a pain in his shoulder causes him to misfire, and the arrow falls short. I figured it would just be like right at his feet. He looks up again and sees Belle is no longer watching, but holding Adam. Gaston touches his pocket softly, and in a close-up we see the same silk handkerchief poking out. Don't worry, Monsieur Gaston. I cannot pull back the bow either. I'm sure you'll get your strength back soon enough, Chip says and recovers the bow. Gaston gets more frustrated. Give me the arrow, boy! Chip hands it to him. Don't strain yourself, he warns. Gaston sets the arrow again and uses his teeth to pull back on the bow and strikes the target bullseye. Chip is impressed and commends him as he runs over to the target. Gaston follows behind him in the wheelchair. It's not all about strength. Out in the field, there are many ways to overcome a challenge. He looks up again at the balcony, but sees that Belle is no longer there. Or solve a problem. I feel like Patrick Warburton should have been Gaston. Oh, solve a problem.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
The three of them start singing a song about how much easier it was when they were young, and how hard it is now. Parts of the song are sung by the servants of the castle, watching all three characters from different parts of the castle. Adam sings about how his parents looked after him when he was young, and there would be flashbacks, and this would be obviously the first time we get to see his family and see really how young his parents were. Gaston sings about how easy it was when he and LeFou just hunted and drank and were merry. Belle sings about her father when her mother was still around, and how so much easier it was for him. The song then changes key, and she then reminisces about how he put his inventing aside and moved to take care of Belle as a child. How hard it was for him to make money and look after her. I get the impression that Maurice probably is pretty good at a lot of things, so he probably did manual labor for a while, but inventing is really his raison d'etre. She ends her part of the song singing, defeating the beast is just another bother when you are a man becoming a father. The servants sing about Adam, saying defeating the beast is just one thing, but you must be a man to be a king. And then Chip ends the song as he watches Gaston slowly wheel back into the castle, looking defeated. I guess defeating the beast is not enough, though. You have to be a man to be a hero. The story then returns back to the townsfolk after they saw King Auroran. They are leaving the castle. They are chatting about Auroran's champion. So I picture them kind of in the castle town, like the town surrounding the castle. They are chatting about Auroran's champion, Daguerre. LeFou is clearly saddened. One of the townsfolk notices and asks him what is wrong. LeFou just says he hopes Auroran's men will be enough. They start complimenting Daguerre, saying he seems very competent. At this point they run into Maurice, who is peddling his wares in town. They start chatting him up and poking fun at him a bit. They apologize about Belle, who they assume is dead, and they apologize for insulting him and not believing him about the beast. Maurice plays along. They offer to escort him back to the village. While camping, LeFou and Maurice are still awake and are sharing a drink. LeFou mentions that you must really miss Belle, Maurice. Sorry for your loss. Maurice, not sure what to say, sees LeFou is sad and says, My condolences about Monsieur Gaston. He was... Maurice struggles to come up with something nice to say about him. He was a very handsome man. LeFou agrees. Yeah, he was. A bit rough around the edges, but very handsome, very popular. And it's like his mustache shakes as he says this shit. Wasn't always like that, you know. He used to look more like me, to be honest. LeFou is reminiscing. Flashbacks of when they were kids appear. A young Gaston appears with a young LeFou. LeFou just looks like a smaller version of himself, probably. He had to grow into his nose. While Gaston looks much different. His nose is too big and his chin is weak, so obviously he had to grow into his chin, kind of like Bruce Campbell. And his dark hair is messy. We used to play together in the woods all the time. When we got a bit older, we would hunt with bows and arrows. He let me borrow his bow too. My, that doesn't sound like Gaston at all. Excuse me. My apologies, I did not know him well. Everything kind of changed after that one rainy night, LeFou says, with a swig of his drink, and starts to pass out. When he let that woman in his parents' home, who offered him a flower. What? What? Maurice says. But LeFou falls asleep. A flashback of Prince Adam explaining his curse to Maurice is shown. A woman came to my door and offered me a rose for shelter. The next scene shows Gaston looking at his green dandelion in his room. He has a flashback of himself as a child with LeFou. They are having breakfast for dinner. LeFou asks, "How many eggs do we need?" And Gaston says, "Good question." Then there is a knock at the door. His younger self creeps towards the door. LeFou says that couldn't be your parents. They're not due back till tomorrow. Gaston snaps out of his memory after a second knocking and then hides the dandelion in the drawer in his room as Chip comes in with breakfast. He is struggling to hold the tray because of how much food is on it. "Here is your breakfast, Monsieur Gaston. 4 scrambled eggs, 4 hard-boiled eggs, 4 soft-boiled eggs, 4 poached eggs, 4 eggs over easy, 4 deviled eggs." Chip loses his footing and Gaston grabs the tray before he drops them. "Careful, boy!" "Sorry, I'm not very strong and that's a lot of food." Gaston looks at him as he rubs his sore arms. He hears his stomach grumble. "Have you not eaten?" "Not yet. I usually don't eat breakfast." Gaston looks at him, shocked. "Well," Gaston grabs the plate of scrambled eggs. "Here, if you want to get strong, you need your breakfast." Chip thanks him, and as they eat, Chip asks some questions. "Did these eggs make you big?" "Yes." "So you were smaller?" "We all were smaller." "But as small as me?" "Maybe smaller." "How many eggs do you eat every day?" 5 dozen. "How many is that?" 60. "You must have a lot of chickens." "And hens." "Did this put hair on your chest?" "Yes." "Will it put hair on my chest?" "Someday." "Are you a hunter?" "Yes." "Are you a soldier?" "Sometimes." "Are you rich?" "No." "Are you poor?" "No." "Then what are you?" "Slightly annoyed." "What's your first name?" "Florent." So I had to think of what would be a good first name for Gaston. And I thought, since Gaston is an analog basically for Prince Adam, like they're very similar, like they're like reflections of each other, 2 sides of the same coin. And considering that Adam's name means man of the red earth, I thought it may be fitting to give Gaston a name that also has like earthy connotations. And also it's a funny name to have. So Florent means like flowering in French. Florent Gaston. What does it mean?
What does Chip mean?
Does your name mean flowers?
Does your name mean fries?
If your name means flowers, why do you have a weed?
None of your business.
The scene continues with Chip asking questions and shows that Mrs. Potts is watching them. Lumiere shows up and speaks with Mrs. Potts as she closes the door. He exclaims that the boy is spending a lot of time with that scoundrel. Potts scoffs and says Chip has never been more helpful around the castle. So he's curious about Monsieur Gaston. Learning how to hunt and provide could be useful. A door slams open, and they can hear Adam and Belle arguing. Mrs. Potts concludes as they look over the railing and watch them, and he may need those skills soon enough. The scene then focuses on Adam and Belle. They are yelling at each other about what to do with the castle. Belle tells him. You have to make a decision. You can't expect them to stay here forever. Then tell me what to do. I don't know, but complaining about it is not going to help things. I'm the king of this castle. I can complain if I want. Fine then, my king. Complain all you want. But you will soon find this castle very empty and yourself very alone with no one to hear your complaints. I'm sorry that I don't have a voice for Belle. Or really a voice for Adam. Like, you only hear him, like, say, like, one thing. Belle?
Belle.
For all we know, he sounds like a surfer dude from Point Break. So, he's my voice. And so is Belle. So, Adam and Belle both storm off in opposite directions. The scene follows Belle as she climbs the staircase. Lumiere and Mrs. Potts pretend that they were not eavesdropping, like dusting things. She then hears Gaston talking to Chip. She peeks in at them. They are good, right? What are these called again? Deviled eggs. They are very easy to prepare, and they make you big and strong. Can you show me? Gaston then hears Belle at the door and sees her. She quickly disappears. Sure. Let us go to the kitchen. Gaston and Chip emerge from his room. Gaston pretends to be surprised to see Belle there. Oh, Belle! We were just about to go into the kitchen to make some more eggs. Would you care for some? Belle thanks him but declines. Suit yourself, Gaston says, trying to maintain composure, and walks off with Chip passing Cogsworth as he approaches the group. Are we seriously letting that rogue have full access to the castle? Cogsworth asks Belle once Gaston is out of earshot. She declines. Not full access, but he is acting more civilly, and besides, Chip has taken a shine towards him. Perhaps it is good for both of them. Cogsworth scoffs in doubt. Anyways, madam, his lordship would like to emphasize his apologies for his outburst, and he is requesting your company for breakfast. I'm sorry if this is not Cogsworth's voice. I have no idea. It took me 6 months to write this, so I don't know. Belle is not impressed. Tell the prince I don't accept apologies given through others. And she eyes Gaston and Chip heading toward the kitchens. And, madam? And I'm making my own breakfast. And I shall have it in my private quarters today alone. Cogsworth is visibly nervous to share this information with Prince Adam and leaves. The scene moves to King Auroran as he travels to Castle La Bête. The head horseman announces that they are nearly there. He asks Daguerre about Gaston. Daguerre explains that he was born into the noble house of Gaston, but whatever wealth they had was squandered before his birth. He was basically a commoner. He was nobility in name and name alone. Thankfully, he exemplified himself as a soldier and gamesman. We met on the battlefield a few times as allies. The king tells him that knowing as much about Gaston is imperative as it will give us insight into how strong the beast is. Daguerre thinks on it. He then recalls a time when he and Gaston were charged with the protection of a young prince during a visit to a local city. 2 snipers shot arrows at the prince, and Gaston was able to shoot the arrows out of the sky with his own arrows. The king exclaims, "That's impressive!" Daguerre scoffs and knocks 3 arrows into his bow. "If I may, your liege." The king waves his hand. Daguerre then shoots the arrows into the sky, and Daguerre then proceeds to shoot all the arrows out of the sky before they hit the ground. Yes, it was impressive, my liege, at the time. The scene then returns to Gaston and Chip in the kitchen cooking eggs. Gaston is finishing up showing Chip how to make the eggs, while Belle is making herself a sandwich. Side note, I don't know why I chose deviled eggs. They're not easy to make. I've never made deviled eggs, and I heard they're tough, so maybe I should have had him teach scrambled eggs, but I don't know. The chef, who was the oven originally, in the original movie, enters and exclaims, "My lady! I would have been happy to make you something to eat. Waitstaff, cooks, to the kitchen, please." A crowd of servants enter the kitchen. He then puts his attention on Gaston. "And what are you doing here, monsieur? This is my kitchen. I shall not allow you to contaminate my domain." Chip then pops a deviled egg into the chef's mouth as he's complaining, like, "Ah, ah, ah," and just whoop, Oh mon Dieu! So savory! The texture is magnifique! Mwah! I must know how to make this! We must make this for the evening's appetizers! Belle laughs, and Gaston notices. He then takes charge and starts showing the cooking staff how to make deviled eggs in song. As the song ends, Belle secrets away a deviled egg and leaves to finish her lunch in private. Just as she leaves, Adam barges in. Belle! He yells. He then sees Gaston and the staff happily cooking food. He sees all the food being wasted and starts yelling at Gaston for wasting food. And what right do you have coming into my home and eating my food and directing my staff? The staff try to object, but Adam won't listen to them. He gets up in Gaston's face, and Gaston shoves him into a table, knocking over silverware. Adam recovers as Lumiere tries to pick him up. Adam grabs an oven mitt. Strike me, will you? In my own home? He marches up to Gaston. He slaps him in the face with the oven mitt. I challenge you to a duel then. Gaston is flabbergasted. Fine then, your majesty. You shall have your duel, he replies in a sneer. The scene goes to the courtyard where Adam and Gaston both have pistols. That's right, we're going Barry Lyndon style now.
1, 2, 3.
Lumiere is pleading with Adam to reconsider. Adam refuses, saying he will not allow this insult to go on any longer. He gives his coat to Lumiere, who then hangs it on a, what is it called, like a silent butler, just like one of those, or mannequin, whatever. Gaston gives his coat to Babette. She was the maid that Lumiere was flirting with a lot in the first movie. Like, you never hear her called Babette. Like, she's like, I'm surprised she wasn't called Feather Duster or something. But in the Wikipedia page, her name is apparently Babette. Belle then enters the courtyard, demanding to know what is going on. Adam explains that he wants Gaston to leave. Leave? Belle exclaims. Are you insane? He's still confined to crutches. Belle! Gaston calls her. It is my fault. I struck him. I accept this duel. Adam grabs his pistol as Gaston grabs his. They both take aim at each other on either side of the courtyard. I may be on crutches, but I can still fire a pistol. Anyone can fire a pistol, Adam replies. Tension grows as they stare each other down. Cogsworth reluctantly provides directions. Ready your weapons! They cock their hammers. Aim! Gaston flinches for a moment and tweaks his aim. Right before Cogsworth can say fire, Maurice can be heard yelling, Stop! He flies in with Philippe. Gaston fires his gun. Everyone looks to Adam, but find him unharmed. The shot hit the coat on the mannequin, silent butler, whatever. It pierced the chest to where Adam's heart would be. Don't shoot! Don't shoot! Maurice interrupts the duel with news of the coming of King Auroran and a small army. They're looking for the beast! The scene moves to the inside where they discuss what Maurice had seen and heard. As they approach the table, Adam tells Gaston that he ruined his favorite jacket. Gaston replies with a smirk, Apologies, the old man stole my aim. Maurice then begins explaining who is coming. Adam and the staff are concerned that they will storm the castle. They decide if Gaston were to meet them, they may hold off their attack. Gaston is reluctant to stay. Why should I help you when you were so eager a moment ago to be rid of me in one way or another? Maurice then whispers into Belle's ear. Belle looks surprised, then asks Gaston about the flower. Gaston is visibly surprised, but initially denies the existence of a flower. Bête then secretly gives the coat to Lumiere, who produces the flower from a pocket. Voila! He presents the dandelion to the room. Gaston immediately goes for the weed and demands that they return it. He approaches Lumiere, but backs off as soon as he attempts to pull the petal. Fine then, Gaston responds. If you do not harm the weed, I will explain. A flashback is given of LeFou and Gaston as kids in a thunderstorm. There's a knock at the door. Gaston opens it to find an old woman, wet and haggard. Gaston is initially startled. How may I help you? He asks. She explains that it is terribly wet and cold outside and offers a rose for shelter. Gaston looks at the rose and says, Gee, you must not have very much. The rose is not necessary. Please come in. and take a seat by the fire. Here, I'll grab a blanket." The old woman steps in, and just as Gaston returns with a blanket, she transforms into a beautiful enchantress. The kids reel back in surprise. The enchantress thanks Gaston and offers him a blessing. She pulls out the rose, and it transforms into a dandelion. She offers it to Gaston. "Here, boy, for your generosity and selflessness, I present you this blessing. You will grow strong and beautiful, but as you do so will this dandelion grow old and gray. If you can learn to love another and be loved in return, the blessing will remain. But if you do not, before the last petal grays and drifts away, the spell will be broken, and you will return to your original self." The flashback ends with Gaston and LeFou looking at the weed, and the enchantress giving him a kiss on the cheek before leaving into the night. "I must now make my leave and join my sisters. Good luck, young one." The flashback fades and returns to the present. Adam looks at the dandelion and comments how it is nearly gray, and some petals have already flown away. Lumiere whispers, "The curse! He too is cursed!" Belle takes the dandelion from Lumiere. "No," she says, "he was blessed." She approaches Gaston, but a blessing that I'm sure has felt like a curse. Gaston eyes Belle suspiciously. She offers it back to Gaston. However, as he reaches for it, she pulls back her hand. "Gaston, we can help you, but only if you help us in return." "And how can you help me?" Gaston sneers, but Bête returns with the glass container that held the enchanted rose. "Because," Adam says, taking the container, "a similar spell happened to me." Gaston looks at the flower in surprise, then turns to Belle. "All right," he says and takes back the dandelion. "Tell me everything you know." The scene then goes to King Auroran as his army approaches Castle La Bête. Daguerre gives orders to the men to fan out and take point on the castle gates with their crossbows. The main army then approaches the gates. King Auroran is in the back watching the approach while Daguerre is leading the way. As they go over the drawbridge, the door starts to open. Daguerre raises his hand to the archers. Gaston then reveals himself. An archer gets spooked by a bird and fires a bolt at Gaston. Gaston spots the bolt and knocks it away with one of his crutches. Daguerre shouts, "Cease fire!" Daguerre then tells his footmen to hold position as he approaches Gaston, who continues to walk towards him on his crutches. The two men reach speaking distance. "Is that you, Gaston?" "I should have known it was you, Daguerre. You always like to make an entrance." The two men smile wryly. There is clearly a rivalry between them. "You seem worse for wear," Daguerre sneers, looking Gaston up and down. "I can still manage without an army covering my back, thankfully," Gaston responds. Daguerre scoffs. "I heard you were dead. I heard you were taller. I heard you were dead. Do not believe everything you hear." "Well, rumor has it there's a beast in there, and some very scary furniture. Have you actually defeated the beast, or are you in league with it?" "There was a beast, but no longer." "Quit with the riddles and mystery, Gaston. You were never that clever. Now tell me what has happened at this castle, or my men and I will come in, and we will find out for ourselves." "I would explain it to you, but I'm afraid it's too complicated for the likes of you." Daguerre raises his hand, and the archers ready their crossbows and the footmen prepare to charge. How quickly we drop pleasantries and resort back to our old ways, eh, Gaston? Gaston remains silent as he stares Daguerre down. "Fine, then. I will not ask you again," Daguerre threatens. "Perhaps not, but maybe he will." Gaston spits and then points behind Daguerre. "Hold your positions!" King Auroran shouts out. "Stand down!" He approaches the two men. "Daguerre, what is the meaning of this? Who is this man?" "This is Monsieur Gaston, your grace," Daguerre submits.
Is it now? Well, it's good to see you alive. And
he recognizes that Gaston is in crutches.
And getting better. Thank you, Your Majesty. I am improving, but my apologies. Your servant has not made formal introductions.
Daguerre scoffs. This is King Auroran, Daguerre states reluctantly.
Ah, I thought so.
Gaston takes a bow, as best he can with crutches.
I thought I recognized the banners. How may I be of service? I was told by the people in the town nearby that a beast has taken up residence at this castle.
There was a beast, but the beast is no longer here.
I see. Then who's in charge now? I assume the young prince, Adam, is long dead. Our records show that he was the only surviving son of this royal family.
Not dead, Prince Adam exclaims as he emerges from the castle. But not well either. Prince Adam walks forward and bows to King Auroran.
Prince Adam, it's good to see you alive.
The king smiles and Daguerre reluctantly takes a bow.
Perhaps we can go inside where it's warm and discuss your problems in private.
The group heads inside and sit down for dinner. Prince Adam explains what happened. He assures him that none of the townsfolk who broke into the castle were killed. We did not mean to harm them. We only defended ourselves. The king asks about Gaston.
Reports say he was killed.
Adam trips over his words to explain what happened. Belle interjects and says that Gaston fell into the river during the siege. We found him and nursed him back to health. He has been with us ever since, recuperating. The king, satisfied and understanding of what transpired, offers to provide whatever support he can to the castle, but that he must leave the next day. During dinner, the king discusses Adam's financial woes with Adam and Belle, while Daguerre catches up with Gaston. The king declines in offering Prince Adam any money, stating,
As a king and as a man, you must earn your fortune just as much as you must earn the respect of your court and love of your future queen. No one owes you anything.
Belle interjects, saying, There must be something you can suggest, however. We do not intend to survive on charity, but your wise counsel would be appreciated. Surely you can afford us that much as a sign of goodwill between our two kingdoms? Moved by her words, the king ponders for a moment. Meanwhile, Daguerre is speaking with Gaston and tells him that he spoke to his liege and they are able to take him back into town if he wants. Gaston hesitates to accept the offer. Daguerre scoffs and begins to be rude and cocky. He talks down about the state of the castle and then remarks,
You're a master game warden, Gaston. Surely you want to get back as soon as possible. Back to your tavern and your trophies and some decent ale. I know you well enough. You're not really stuck to those crutches, are you? Why would you possibly want to stay here in a castle destined for ruin, run by furniture and led by a boy prince who spent his formative years as a beast?
Before Gaston can answer, the king shouts,
That's it! I have an idea!
He explains that he will set up a friendly competition among the courts in Europe. There will be an entrance fee, of course.
We need it large enough to turn heads and to draw in as many courts as possible. Let's say a small fortune. The winner of the competition wins the pot. Adam, my boy, you win that pot, and you'll have your parents' fortune back and then some.
We could reopen the mine and keep the staff employed, Adam says, thinking of the possibilities. But what kind of competition would it be? Belle asks.
A competition of this size in coin. It would most certainly have to be a sporting competition. Yes, archery, hunting, sword fighting, wrestling.
I have no idea what they did at that time. My research only went so far for this time period that it appears to be set in the first movie. So I thought those were kind of, you could picture those happening at that time. Prince Adam sinks in his chair. Not exactly my areas of expertise.
Now, my young prince. You were a beast for 10 years. Surely that time has left an impression on you. As a creature of the wild, did you not hunt or run with the wolves? By the description of your townsfolk, you are quite large and powerful. It's none of this remained with the withering of your curse.
Prince Adam admits that though he is older and stronger than he was before the curse, he knows very little about game or hunting or sport. And as we recall from the first movie, he didn't even know how to eat at a table. Again, Prince Adam is really a kid who's trying to catch up and grow up. Gaston looks at Belle, looking solemn. He looks at Adam and Aurora discussing the matter. He sees the shabby state of the footmen and maids. He sees Chip acting as a servant. And then he sees Daguerre snapping his fingers at Chip while he takes another mug of ale from him and then inspects the cup. Gaston grimaces, then stands up as best he can from the crutches and announces that he will compete as champion for Castle La Bête. Daguerre begins laughing. Adam and Belle are shocked. Aurora looks him up and down and cautions, "Are you sure about this? Your reputation precedes you, but you're still recovering."
Recovering is one word for it.
Daguerre laughs and goes to take a swig of his ale. Gaston flicks a knife at the table through the handle of the stein, keeping Daguerre from drinking. "A competition like that will take a few weeks to prepare. I will be ready before then," Gaston sneers.
"I like your spirit. Then it is settled. I shall make the preparations. We will send word with details."
King Aurora then gets up and finishes his drink.
"And with that, we must be off. We would stay, but I dare say I would hate to be any further of a burden on you and your staff than necessary."
"Are you sure? We can certainly make accommodations," Prince Adam says as he stands up as well.
No, it's not necessary, and we still have plenty of light left in the day."
His servant puts his coat on him, and they begin heading for the door. He walks behind Daguerre.
"Come on, Daguerre. No more sulking. We must be off."
Daguerre gets up and follows the king. "Thank you again for your generosity," Belle exclaims when they reach the doorway. Adam voices his gratitude as well.
"It's no problem. I recall our families were quite close at one time. I would like it to be so again."
The king then turns to go, then turns back.
"Oh, and do not forget about the entry fee. It will not be insignificant, but it should be manageable. Farewell."
They watch the king and his retinue leave. Prince Adam admits, "I do not know if I should be relieved or even more worried." Belle consoles him, and then Gaston laughs as he walks back inside. However, the moment he is out of sight, Gaston makes a worrisome face as well. Another song begins that talks about facing challenges and taking risks for greater reward. The song ends with Gaston and Adam asking themselves if they can trust each other, and then if they can trust themselves. The film then moves to the townsfolk with LeFou in the tavern sitting by the fire, drinking in Gaston's chair. They hear marching outside and they see the Auroran army leaving. Townsfolk run out to see the passing army. They shout, "What happened? Did you see the beast? Was there a battle?" King Auroran tells the crowd that the beast no longer resides in the castle and that he and his men found no traces of magical furniture. He applauds the townsfolk.
"It may have felt like you lost that day, but I assure you that you have won. The former prince has retaken control of the castle. I spoke with him, and we are excited to announce that a tournament will be held to celebrate his return. More news to that will come. That is all I have for now. Take care, and farewell."
As they continue to ride off, LeFou sees the silhouette of Daguerre against the setting sun. He mistakes him for Gaston, and he approaches him, but then sees that it is not him. Disappointed, he returns back to this tavern and resumes his seat at Gaston's chair, while the townsfolk around him celebrate their victory and look forward to the coming tournament. Back at the castle, Gaston is visited by Belle while he is in the games room practicing throwing a knife while clearly contemplating on what just happened. She commends him on his bravery and thanks him for his support. He says it's no problem.
"That fraud Daguerre has always been a thorn in my side. I will enjoy having a chance to put him in his place."
Belle does not respond to his boasting. He begins to start a story about how he bested him one time before Belle interrupts him. Gaston, I do not want you to do this for me. Gaston looks up at Belle and frowns. Though I appreciate your support in this tournament, and I'm very surprised, I cannot let you do this for me. I am with Adam. Gaston thinks to himself for a moment and smirks. Belle, I appreciate you saying so, but as I said, I'm not doing this for you, or for that Adam, or any of the servants. I am doing it for a chance to put Daguerre in his place, nothing more. Belle instantly sees through his lies, but plays dumb to save him his pride. Good, I'm glad. She pauses for a moment. You are nearly healed now, and my father and Philippe have returned. I'm sure you are itching to return back to the town. We would be happy to drive you back. Gaston laughs and says, Thank you, Belle. Though to be frank, I am not sure how much training I will be able to accomplish there. The townsfolk can be a bit overbearing, and I will need to begin training as soon as I am healed. Again, Belle sees through his lies, but plays along, as a trickle of sweat, of nervous sweat, goes down Gaston's temple. Alright, you raise a good point. I will let Adam know. I'm sure it will not be a problem, but on 2 conditions. Gaston raises an eyebrow. You make peace with Adam. You are allies for this tournament, and you must work together. Gaston smirks. Sure. I will play nice with the young prince. It is not me you have to worry about starting a fight. Belle folds her arms and raises her own eyebrow. I'm sure. Leave Adam to me. I will make sure he is peaceful from now on as well. And your second condition? Well, I'm sure you are aware of how dire our money situation is. The family fortune has been all but lost, and we are quickly running out of food and supplies. Gaston smiles again, knowing what she is hinting at. Say no more. As soon as I am able, I will hunt, fish, whatever. I can pull my own weight. Good. Glad that's settled. I will take my leave then. Belle turns to go, but before she leaves the room, she turns back. Gaston? Belle? I may not be able to offer you what you want or need. If this is about the dandelion, I can explain. Gaston interrupts and tries to regain some composure. It's not about the dandelion, Gaston. But we will help you any way we can with that. Gaston stands up straight. I may not be able to offer you what you want or need, but I can offer you friendship. She then leaves before he can respond. A song then begins about friendship. Gaston sings about how he feels he failed the town and feels ashamed to show his face to his friends. The song goes back and forth between Gaston and LeFou and Belle. LeFou sings to himself about how he misses his friend and that friends support each other. Belle sings as she helps the servants with their duties while she is on her way to meet up with Adam, who is playing chess with Cogsworth. She sees Chip go running to Gaston's room with a tray of food and smiles. The song ends with the final message being that friends are like family you choose, and you support each other whether win or lose. The movie then moves forward in time a few weeks to Gaston finally healed and chopping wood, while Maurice is working on his wood chopping machine. The chef walks by and thanks him for the wild boar he caught. Gaston helps Maurice solve an issue with the fuel of the machine, suggesting he is burning the boiler too hot. Maurice lowers the temperature of the machine and it works perfectly. He asks him how he figured that out. Gaston explains it is similar to when he is packing his blunderbuss. Too much powder can be disastrous. I'm off to do some training before dinner. See you in the dining hall. Gaston then walks through the castle, passing by lots of servants. All of them, except for maybe Cogsworth, greets him warmly. Especially Chip, who shows him a new bow he's strung and asks if they can go hunting tomorrow. Gaston agrees. A variation of the Belle song is played. That's the song that the townsfolk sing at the beginning of the movie, the original movie, about how different Belle is from the rest of them. She's really not like the rest of us.
She's nothing like the rest of us.
However, in this version of the song, the servants comment, he's not so different from the rest of us. Gaston eventually ends up in the library where Adam is researching over a table covered in books. Adam asks him why he has to train here. Gaston explains that it is because it is the room with the most floor space.
You don't expect me to train outside in the cold and the dark?
Gaston then throws a javelin at a target on the other side of the room and it flies past Adam, disturbing his papers. Adam gets upset. Oh, can you please not do that? I'm trying to figure out this tournament business.
What's there for you to figure out?
Gaston replies as he begins doing push-ups.
I am the one actually competing in the tournament.
It's not that. Adam turns to Gaston and then dodges a throwing axe just in time. I'm trying to figure out how to raise money to even have you enter the tournament. Adam walks around with his head in his hands. Oh! According to these records, my father was so good with money. Why can I not figure this out?
Perhaps you should take a break.
Gaston snickers.
Maybe money is not your strong suit.
Oh? Adam looks back at Gaston angrily. And I suppose money is your strong suit. Because that is not what I read about your family. How much wealth did your parents lose before you even became a man? Gaston frowns.
Likely less than the fortune you lost when you lost your parents.
Gaston fires back. Adam goes over to the axe and throws it back at Gaston, who catches it. Adam then throws the javelin at him, and again, Gaston catches it. Lumiere walks in to announce that dinner will be ready soon. Adam asks him to give him the sword on the nearby wall.
Fuck.
Lumiere gives it to him and he throws it at Gaston out of anger. They continue doing this for a while. Cogsworth eventually comes in and asks what is taking so long and sees the fight happening. Lumiere gives the shield to Cogsworth. Here, can you hold this for me? I must get to a ladyship. Cogsworth, Adam yells, pass me the shield. Cogsworth then gets into it and begins actively assisting Adam with a big smile on his face.
I can do this all day, Adam. Perhaps we should invite the servants in and they can get some entertainment. It is the least you can do before sending them packing over money issues.
Gaston laughs. Adam then has an epiphany and stops fighting with Gaston. Wait! That's a great idea. We give them entertainment. They could even place bets. Gaston is confused.
Place bets? With what money?
No, not the servants, the townsfolk. We have an exhibition match. We host an exhibition competition in town. Anyone who wants to compete must pay to enter. Gaston stands up straight, then clues into what Adam is suggesting.
I see what you're suggesting. Then I enter the competition.
You will be masked to encourage more competitors. No one would compete against you otherwise. The townsfolk can place bets, and we can take a cut of the winnings.
I will then win the competition.
And when you do, you will take off your mask, and the townsfolk will cheer and celebrate. What a wonderful surprise. Their hero is alive.
They will get their hero back.
And they will love you even more. Remember, absence makes the heart grow fonder. They will love you, Gaston, and the spell will not be broken. Belle then bursts into the room with Lumiere. What is the meaning of all this racket? She exclaims. Have you been fighting again? No, darling. Gaston and I were having a debate on how to raise money to enter the tournament. Belle then turns to Gaston.
Yes, we were doing a thought exercise. We have a plan now.
We will host an exhibition match in town. We will raise money for challengers for Gaston and commissions on bets. That could work, Belle replies, thinking about the plan. Gaston admits that he is a bit hesitant to show his face. They tell him he must do it eventually. Adam reminds him that perhaps it is not the love of just one person he needs. Perhaps the love of the town is what he needs to win to keep the spell. You clearly love the town. Maybe if they loved you in return, the spell will continue. Gaston begins to doubt and argues that the town already loved him once and it had no effect on the dandelion. Belle suggests that was before you were a royal champion. You will mean much more to them now. Also, you've had time away from the town and now you know how much you love it there, how much you miss it. Gaston thinks about it and then agrees that it is worth a shot. The day of the exhibition match has come. The servants of the castle are busy putting together the event in town while Belle and Adam prepare Gaston to compete. Belle, Adam, and Gaston recap about how the dandelion may not mean that he needs to find romantic love. Maybe it's a different kind of love. The love and admiration of the town. So they remind him to give them a good show. Gaston is still doubtful. Adam takes Gaston aside as Belle is called over to assist Mrs. Potts. When you win, Adam begins, and you reveal yourself to the town, maybe that will satisfy the dandelion. However, remember what the enchantress said. It's not just you have to find love. You have to learn to love as well. Adam and Belle make a speech before starting the match. Adam struggles a bit with his speech. Belle takes his hand and tells him he's doing great. He then is able to finish the speech and thank the townsfolk for their support in ridding the beast. He tells them to enjoy this competition and wishes luck to all the competitors. The competition takes place with Gaston in a mask. Some of the larger characters from the original movie join in the competition, along with another masked competitor. Gaston and the other masked competitor enter under the names Florent and Dumas. So obviously, the masked competitor is Daguerre. I figured Dumas would be an interesting name to give to Daguerre, as it's like a reference to Alexander Dumas, who wrote The Three Musketeers and The Man in the Iron Mask. So maybe Daguerre is wearing like an iron mask. Gaston and Daguerre quickly lead the way in the competition. A montage is given of them doing strongman challenges,
Oh my God! No! You gotta be kidding me!
target shooting, and swordsmanship.
A Jose Canseco bat? Tell me, you didn't pay money for this. Ooh, that's
Eventually the competition comes down to Gaston and Daguerre. Daguerre purposely loses to Gaston to ensure that he enters the main tournament. He wants to make him a fool in front of everyone. Belle feels like Gaston won the match a bit too easily and checks her magic mirror. She discovers that it was Daguerre who pulled the match. She sees him talk to himself, saying he lost the match to ensure Gaston comes to the main tournament, and then he will beat him and make him a fool in front of everyone. Belle warns Gaston, but he tries to be unimpressed about it. Gaston reveals himself to the townsfolk, where he is declared the winner. Daguerre slips away unnoticed. The town is initially shocked, and then they erupt in applause and surprise that Gaston is alive. One of the other townsfolk, who competed in the competition, comes up behind Gaston and picks him up and tosses him on the crowd in celebration. Gaston crowd surfs until he reaches LeFou. Gaston is let down, and the two are silent for a moment when they see each other. Gaston then makes a smirk. LeFou! I trust you have been keeping my seat warm in the tavern? LeFou is visibly excited to see him. Of course, Gaston! It's great to have you back. It really is great! LeFou runs over, holding back tears, and gives him a handshake hug. You know, like he wants to hug him, gives him a handshake.
You son of a bitch.
It's great to be back, LeFou. Let's have a toast to my win. They all start heading back towards the tavern. Adam, Belle, Lumiere, and Cogsworth and the other servants watch them walk away. Gaston does turn around and wave at them. They wave back.
I suppose he's back to where he belongs, Cogsworth mutters. Oh, leave him be, Cogsworth. It is why we brought him here, no?
Lumiere responds. Gaston is then shown being put in his seat, and LeFou runs over to the bar to get him a drink. Gaston takes a peek at his dandelion. He sees another yellow petal turn gray. He frowns, but quickly changes his expression when LeFou returns. Gaston smiles and they both cheers and down their drinks. Gaston then looks out the window and sees Adam and Belle packing up.
How about another, Gaston?
LeFou asks. Sure. I will be right back, though, he says to LeFou and heads outside. Enjoying your celebrating? Adam asks as Gaston approaches. Cogsworth is counting the money. Yes. He pauses for a moment, then lets his guard down. No! It didn't work! The dandelion is still graying. That's not the only thing that didn't work, Cogsworth says. We only have raised half the entry fee. Now Adam is surprised and panicking. Great! This was our one shot at raising the money. Belle tries to comfort him. Come now, it's no use. At least we can say we tried. We may think of something on the way back to the castle. The other servants then pipe up with suggestions. That's right! We could sell more items from the castle. Maybe we could host another exhibition tournament. I know, we could print our own money.
No!
We don't have any more items to sell. He slams his fist on the table. We don't have time to set up another exhibition tournament. And I do not think that paper money even exists yet, Lumiere whispers to Cogsworth. Adam's shoulders slump. It's no use. I'm sorry, everyone. I failed. The least I can do is split the winnings with all of you. Hopefully be enough to buy you a new life. He motions to Cogsworth. Cogsworth, would you mind splitting the money? I'm heading back to the castle. Everyone is surprised by Adam's defeated attitude. Gaston approaches him. Adam, surely you're not going to give up. We have come too far to... It's no use, Gaston. I'm sorry we cannot help you maintain the spell. I wish you all the best. He puts his hand on Gaston's shoulder and walks past him. The servants and Gaston watch Adam get in his carriage. Then they look to Belle. Don't worry, everyone. I will speak with him. She runs over to the carriage. Belle. Not now, Gaston. I'm sorry. Let me figure this out with Adam first, okay? We will talk soon. I promise. Celebrate, though. It's still your win today. Maybe the dandelion just needs a bit more time to recognize what you achieved. She hops in the carriage, and her, Adam, Maurice, and Philippe take off back to the castle. Gaston's brow furrows as he watches them head off. He then looks back to the tavern and sees all the celebrating going on over there. Le Fou then calls out from the entrance, Hey Gaston, your brew is getting warm! Oh, no. Hey Gaston, your brew is getting warm! I don't know why. I don't know why I'm making Le Fou sound like he's from like Jersey or something. Hey Gaston, your brew is getting warm! Gaston waves and then turns back to the carriage. He pauses for a moment in thought, before clearly thinking of something and heading back to the tavern with purpose. He takes a few steps before he is interrupted. Monsieur Gaston? Chip asks. Yes, Chip? Gaston stops and turns to Chip. What can we do? Gaston then sees that all the servants are now looking at him, hopeless and defeated. Gaston looks at them, and at first his face softens. Then he looks back at Chip. We will do what we can. I'll be right back. He then turns and heads off to the tavern, where the servants are left alone, looking solemn. A song then begins that talks about facing challenges. It starts off very slow and defeated, but as it continues, it gets faster and more triumphant, with a major key change in the second part of the song. It begins with the servants singing about hitting rock bottom and not having the energy to climb out. The song then moves to Gaston, who sings about hitting a roadblock and not having the strength to push through. The song then moves to Le Fou, who watches Gaston return. He sings about feeling lost and you can't find your way. The song then lifts and he sings about how then you see the light and the path gets clearer. The song then moves to Daguerre, who sings about how sometimes you have to be defeated in order to have a chance at winning. The song continues to get louder and faster. It moves to Belle and Adam. Belle is singing to Adam about how when you reach a dead end, that is an opportunity to try a new path. Adam sings back asking, what if there isn't another path? Belle responds, then you forge your own path, make a new path. Through song, Belle shows Adam how well off the servants would be forging their new lives in a new town outside of the castle. She then shows them living in a modest house while Maurice is working on inventions. Adam is farming, and Belle is tending to some livestock. The song ends with, when the crown no longer fits, become a different kind of king. Work hard, and a new kingdom you will bring, with your hands, your heart, and your wits. The song is interrupted by a pack of wolves. They are barking at something unseen, then direct their aggression at the carriage and attack the carriage. Adam, Belle, and Maurice try to race away, but Philippe takes a quick turn and the carriage falls over. Maurice is pinned under the carriage. Philippe is trying to pull him out or lift the carriage. Adam and Belle help each other out and prepare for the wolves. They pick up sticks and try to fight them as they come. They hold their own for a bit, but just before they are overwhelmed, Gaston appears, fights them, and scares them off. I figured this would be like similar to in the original film where Beast fights off the wolves and saves Belle. He wipes his hands, thinking that was too easy. But why would they be here? He then hears a baby roar. He investigates a hollow tree stump and sees a baby bear stuck. A mama bear then appears and charges at Gaston. Great. Gaston wrestles with the bear and directs Belle and Adam to get the baby bear loose. Belle is trying to help her father. Adam rushes over to the stump and works on getting the baby unstuck. Eventually he does so, and the baby heads straight out for the mama, who then picks it up by the scruff and runs into the woods.
She keeps her cubs close to her and stands her ground.
Adam and Belle thank him and ask him why is he there. Gaston replies, "I am not alone." He whistles into the forest. "The coast is clear!" The servants then appear, and then the townsfolk. It is revealed that the townsfolk want to donate the rest of the money to support Castle of Bête and Gaston. Adam and Belle accept on the condition that they return the money after they win the tournament. They then offer for them to stay at the castle, but they do not have much. The townsfolk reveal that they brought food and drink themselves. They all then have a party at the castle. The song then resumes. Lumiere sings to Cogsworth as he puts the money away in the safe. "Sometimes you have to spend money to make money." Chip sings, "Sometimes you have to be lonely before you can make new friends," as he goes off to play with the town children. Gaston brings food to a table. The food is a bunch of eggs, of course. "Sometimes you just have to break an egg to make an omelet." Adam and Belle conclude the song with the rest of the crowd joining in. "Sometimes you have to fall to know how to get back up. Sometimes you have to cry in order to laugh. Sometimes you have to celebrate when you have nothing to celebrate, but celebrate when you do. I will, you will do, and you too, at least sometimes." The film then goes to King Auroran as he is watching the tournament grounds get set up. He receives word by carrier pigeon that Castle of Bête has raised the funds to enter the tournament. He smiles.
"You have made a very important step, young prince,"
he says to himself.
"You've united a kingdom."
He then looks over to Daguerre, who is training vigorously.
"Now you must trust your champion, your hero, to save the day."
The film fades away from Daguerre's face to Gaston's face. The film returns to the castle. The servants are preparing to leave for the tournament. Gaston is doing some last-minute training with LeFou and Chip. Maybe some skeet shooting or target shooting.
Seems terribly difficult. No, it isn't, is it?
"We better get going while we still have light," Maurice calls out. LeFou goes over to bring Gaston his cape and finds the dandelion. "It's still green, huh?" he asks. "It is. Not much time left. Maybe a miracle will happen at the tournament," Chip suggests. "Maybe, Chip," he replies and hands him up to Maurice to sit with him at the front of the carriage. Gaston gets up on his horse. LeFou continues talking while trying to climb up on his. "Are you not worried?" he asks. No. Gaston tries to act confident. "I'm not finished trying to beat this." "And if you can't beat it?" Chip asks. Before Gaston can respond, Belle shows up. "Then we will accept defeat gracefully," she smiles as she gets in the carriage. "No one likes a sore loser." Gaston blushes a bit, knowing he was a poor sport not that long ago. LeFou and Chip look at Gaston. "Exactly," he smirks, then whistles his horse, and they gallop to the front of the caravan. "All right, we are ready to go," Adam calls, and the caravan heads out. The film moves forward to them arriving at the tournament at the Auroran Castle. In the crowd, LeFou thinks he sees the triplets. He rubs his eyes and then they are gone. He turns to tell Gaston, but then sees that he is far ahead. "Come on, LeFou, this way!" he calls out. Adam and Belle join King Auroran in his viewing box. "I'm glad to see you made it," the king exclaims as they approach. "We have contestants from far and wide here." He starts pointing them out. It becomes clear that they have representatives from other Disney films, such as Arendelle, Frozen, Corona, Tangled, Denmark, The Little Mermaid, another French monarch. They are a bit hung up on shoes. We then hear a glass break off camera. "Dear, my shoe cracked." "No worries, darling. I will have our glassblower make another." Cinderella. Auroran continues to point out more royalty. "There is Agrabah. They traveled a long way. Their rugs must be tired."
What's your name?
Aladdin.
Aladdin! Hello, Aladdin. Nice to have you on the show.
Oh, and there is another monarch from Germania. You may want to make acquaintances as they have an impressive mining operation and apple orchards. Snow White. The master of ceremonies for the tournament gets everyone's attention and explains the games.
Far from his homeland in search of glory and honor, we walk in the garden of his turbulence.
The games begin, and again, Daguerre and Gaston quickly are at odds and start beating many of the competitors, except for one masked competitor. Again, the first game will likely be shown in detail, and then the rest, up until the last two, will be given in a montage. It will be a series of events where Gaston, Daguerre, and the masked competitor are dominating.
Stop City! No! Oh my God! Buster right over! Jeff Jarrett goes for the ride! Chokeslam! Someone was gonna get hurt tonight!
During the games, LeFou is often checking the dandelion as it is close to becoming fully gray. Maurice asks him how the dandelion is doing, and LeFou is doubtful. "His last chance is this tournament," he says. "Well, yes, I suppose if he does win, countless people will love him." "Yes, they will," LeFou replies forlornly. Maurice notices LeFou's grim demeanor. "What's wrong, LeFou?" Maurice asks. "You look troubled." "Well, I'm just worried if the spell does break, what will happen?" "I'm sure most will love him regardless, whatever form he takes." "Yes, but will he be able to love himself?" Meanwhile, Adam, Belle, Auroran, and the servants are trying to figure out who is the masked competitor. Belle tries to use her magic mirror, but she cannot tell because of the mask. Auroran calls the master of ceremonies over, and he confirms that the competitor has requested his identity to be kept a secret. "I can confirm that he did pay the entrance fee." Adam is visibly worried. Auroran reassures him and tells him to remain stoic and patient. "You got everyone this far. Now trust in your preparations and your champion." There is a moment where Gaston gets hurt but manages to successfully complete the event.
And now Kane planting the...
LeFou goes down to bandage him up before the next match. "That was a close one." "I've had worse," Gaston boasts, and then winces as LeFou cleans his wound. "I know you have," LeFou replies. "Remember when we were tracking that lynx for over an hour, and it turned out that a brown bear was tracking us? That gash did not heal for months." While this conversation is happening, a narrated flashback is given. It is shown that LeFou distracted the bear, allowing Gaston to give the final blow. LeFou saved his life. The flashback fades and Gaston clearly recalls LeFou's importance in the situation. "I do remember. You saved my life, LeFou." "It was nothing. You saved my life too." "Right." LeFou helps Gaston up. Gaston is at a loss for words. "What are friends for, right?" "Yes, that's right. We made a good team, didn't we, LeFou?" "We always got our game. We still got that lynx, remember?" "I do remember." Gaston offers his hand. "Thank you, LeFou." The two shake hands smiling. "All right, I must get on," Gaston says as they begin announcing the next game. "You got this, Gaston." Gaston leaves while LeFou is watching him with a smile. The competition continues on, and it eventually comes down to Gaston, Daguerre, and the masked competitor.
And it could be literally the last Rose! That's Pete Rose! Pete! No, Undertaker! No! What the hell? Wait a minute! Oh!
Gaston and Daguerre nearly lose because of their rivalry, while up against the masked competitor. There is a bit of a three-way sword fight, as all three competitors had the same score. After considerable difficulty with the masked competitor, Gaston recommends to Daguerre to put aside their differences and work together. Daguerre is resistant, and goes after them both and nearly loses. After some further convincing, they agree to team up. They manage to put the masked competitor on the defense. However, through cunning, the competitor manages to separate them. He finishes off Daguerre quickly, then continues the match with Gaston. Gaston holds his ground despite being outclassed and injured. He loses based on points, but never gives up. I wanted to have a Rocky moment for Gaston. Why not?
He's got him up against the rope. Apollo, the champion.
The crowd erupts with the masked competitor's win. Cogsworth was even cheering for the masked competitor, but then quickly changes his cheering to booing when Lumiere, Mrs. Potts, and Chip give him the evil eye. Gaston meets up with Daguerre.
We almost had him. I would have been able to make the finishing blow if you hadn't parried when you should have blocked.
Daguerre grumbles. Gaston looks disappointed at him, and he notices. Daguerre then swallows his pride.
Well, at any rate, you did fight very well at the end there. Shame it was not us at the end, though.
There is always next time. Gaston offers his hand. Daguerre looks at Gaston's hand for a moment, then smirks.
Just remember to block next time.
He takes Gaston's hand, and they make amends. Their handshake is then interrupted by the announcer who directs them to the award ceremony. The three men take their spots on the pedestals according to their place. The Master of Ceremonies announces the winners, starting with third place. It is revealed that the first place masked winner is a descendant of Robin of Locksley, Robin Hood. The crowd cheers. Adam, Belle, and Aurorin come down to meet with the winners. Adam and Belle go straight to Gaston. LeFou and Chip help bandage him up.
I'm sorry I did not win,
Gaston says. Do not worry about it, Adam replies and offers Gaston his hand. We did our best. We will figure out how to move forward from here. Gaston, though disappointed, agrees, stating, We gave it our all. At least we lost on our own terms. What about the dandelion? Belle exclaims. LeFou pulls it out of his coat. As he unwraps it from the silk scarf, the dandelion, now completely gray, blows away in the wind. Gaston then levitates into the air and is covered in light, similar to how Adam transformed into a human at the end of the original movie. Everyone watches and covers their eyes from the bright light. However, Gaston does not transform into anything. The spell breaks, and he finds himself looking the same. Nothing has changed, Adam exclaims. Well, he does have a few more split ends, Cogsworth sneers. Did the spell not break? I do not feel different at all. Gaston is completely surprised.
What is going on here? What is the meaning of this?
Aurorin approaches the group. Gaston was under a similar spell to me, Adam explains. The spell just broke.
Was it a blessing or a curse?
Aurorin asks. They look at Gaston.
I'm not sure now,
he replies.
Hey, Gaston, don't you see?
LeFou says, coming up behind him.
You never needed the spell anyways. You were always going to end up a champion. That's just who you are.
He then pops a bottle of champagne, getting everyone wet.
Oh, whoops.
Gaston picks up LeFou by the coat and stares at him angrily. He then breaks into a smirk and then a smile. Then they both start laughing. The winner then approaches and greets them.
There is a lot of celebrating going on over here despite defeat.
Very risky of you competing, Locksley,
Aurorin says cheerfully, shaking the winner's hand.
You know me. Can't let the heroes have all the fun.
He offers his hand to Daguerre and Gaston.
Well played, gentlemen. You almost had me there.
They both thank Locksley.
And you must be the young prince we have all heard about,
he says, turning to Adam. Yes, Your Highness, Adam replies.
I heard about your parents and the curse. My sincere apologies.
Thank you, Your Highness.
And this must be the new princess.
Belle, Your Highness. Belle curtsies. Not a princess yet. We were hoping to marry after the tournament.
Ah, congratulations are in order then. Sadly, I must be getting back, so I will not be able to attend. However, I will send a wedding gift.
He winks, then turns to Auroran. King Auroran, thank you again for hosting the tournament. It was a pleasure. And farewell all. He then heads off in his carriage with his servants. Well, tough luck about the tournament, Adam. But why don't you stay for dinner at least? Auroran suggests. A moment later, a servant then approaches the group and interrupts. Beg your pardon, sire, but we have a package for Prince Adam. They see that it is a large chest. Adam and Belle open the letter. Congratulations on your wedding. If you're ever in England, please drop in. We would be happy to have you. King Locksley. They open the chest and it's full of gold. I know I gave him an Irish accent, he's supposed to be English, but fuck it. The prize money! Auroran laughs. Cheeky scoundrel. I must thank him. I will join you. Gaston and Adam get on their horses and they catch up to Locksley. They talk to him through his carriage window and express their gratitude. Locksley smiles. It's my pleasure. The Locksleys have always been a charitable lot since our ancestor Robin. You know, take from the rich and give to the poor and all that. Think nothing of it. Enjoy your wedding and congratulations. Gaston and Adam start to leave and Locksley stops them one last time. Yes, your highness? Listen, I don't know what the future may hold for both of you. But aside from being charitable, the one thing my ancestor taught me is that no one is born a hero or a king. Sometimes they're outlaws. Or beasts, Adam interjects solemnly. Or villains, Gaston interjects as well. Exactly, you know what I mean. Farewell, gentlemen. He knocks on the door of the carriage, and it continues on, with Adam and Gaston watching it go. The scene fades. The next scene fades in, and a title card comes up stating 2 weeks later.
2 weeks later?
Gaston and LeFou are in the forest watching an elk. Okay, there she is. Now be very quiet, says Gaston.
Relax your shoulders and take a breath,
LeFou says. The sound of a stomach grumbling is then heard. It is then revealed that Chip is there next to them. The elk runs off.
Sorry, I'm getting hungry. I haven't eaten all day,
Chip says. It's all right, Belle responds as she puts down her bow. We should probably be getting back now anyways. We do not want to be late. And these bugs are really bad out here. I'm being eaten alive. Oh, I really fucked that accent up. Lumiere says, slapping his neck. We do not want to keep his highness waiting. Honestly, I'm more concerned about keeping Cogsworth waiting, Chip says, and his stomach grumbles again. They all laugh. It's a kid's movie, okay? These jokes have to be fucking shitty. The film then goes to Cogsworth, who is looking at his pocket watch. What is keeping them? They are so late. Relax, Cogsworth. They'll be here, Adam says. The sound of a door opening is heard. See, here they are. Gaston and LeFou are then shown sneaking in through a large door. It is then revealed that they are in a church and that today is Adam and Belle's wedding day. Gaston and LeFou confidently and quickly walk down the aisle in matching formal attire.
Where have you been?
Relax, Pop. You nervous?
Not nervous. The groom is nervous.
I'm not nervous, schmuck.
Don't call me a schmuck, you putz.
Fellas, you're in a church.
They take their spots next to Adam. What took you? Adam whispers to Gaston. Elk was harder to track than we thought. Of course, do you have the ring? Of course. Gaston grins and shows the ring box. Good. Adam smiles and sighs. He then takes a breath in. What's that smell? Elk pee, LeFou responds. Ah, it's quite effective, Gaston adds. I'm sure, Adam replies. The wedding march then begins, and Lumiere and Cogsworth open the doors to reveal Belle in a wedding gown. Chip is holding up her dress. Maurice is walking her down the aisle. Belle arrives at the altar. Mrs. Potts and Babette are also there as her bridesmaids. The camera pans over the audience, showing it is a mix of townsfolk and servants. King Auroran and Daguerre are also there. Philippe and the dog are watching from the window. Cogsworth is crying. The camera then goes back to Adam and Belle at the moment they say, I do. They kiss and everyone erupts in applause. including Gaston. Belle tosses her bouquet and Daguerre catches it and blushes. The bridal party congratulate the couple. Gaston shakes Adam's hand, hugs Belle, and kisses her on the cheek. LeFou is wiping his eyes. As he reopens them, he then thinks he sees the triplets again. Gaston then offers him his hand. LeFou looks up to Gaston and takes his friend's hand. They are both smiling. LeFou then looks again and no longer sees the triplets. The film then goes outside to reveal the triplets walking away down the road.
Well, isn't that nice? Red says. Yes, very nice, Green says. Did you think Gaston would break your spell? Amber says to Red. Who said he didn't? Red replies with a sly grin. Oh, come now, really? Tell us, Green replies. Red smiles and shakes her head cheekily. Well, I still won the bet, Amber exclaims. Oh, fine, Red replies and turns Amber's dress blue. Did you actually think Gaston would marry first? Blue asks Red. Well, you did turn Adam into a beast for 10 years, Red replies. What did you give Belle again, Fauna? Belle asks Green. Good question, Merryweather. I can't remember what happened either, Red adds. Her and her father were actually on their way to move to this town. I asked for shelter from the storm, but they had no shelter to give me. Belle gave me her umbrella instead. She was so cute. She said, there, now you'll never get wet. Oh, that is cute, Blue sighs. So, what did you give her? A blessing? Surely not a curse. The camera pans to the shadows the women are casting on the ground. The shadows transform into their familiar shapes of the fairies from Sleeping Beauty. Either. The shadows stop. I gave her a good story. They all start laughing and they fly away. The end song, Tale as Old as Time, fades in and the scene dissolves one last time back to the wedding. Adam, Belle, Gaston, LeFou, and all the rest at their reception. The wedding party are sitting in a row at dinner among their friends and they are all laughing. Adam and Belle go for a kiss. Gaston puts his arm around LeFou and with a splash of beer they cheers their mugs. The camera pulls back to show the whole reception and the image then transforms into stained glass. The image then fades out with the conclusion of the song with amended lyrics. Certain as the sun setting in the west, tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme, beauty, beast, and our guest.